Look who finally stopped apologizing. Look who finally put themselves first. Look who made that one ice-cold, selfish, ruthless, unforgivable move and walked away without looking back. Oh, they hated you for it, didn't they? They called you selfish. They called you heartless. They called you cold. They whispered behind your back like you committed some unforgivable crime. And maybe you did. Maybe you broke their rules. Maybe you shattered their expectations. Maybe you stopped being the person they could use and became the person they could never control. And that right there, that was the moment everything changed. Because here's what they'll never tell you. That selfish move, that one decision where you chose yourself over their comfort, where you walked away from the guilt, where you said no without explanation, where you burned the bridge and didn't send flowers afterward. That move didn't just save you. It saved people you don't even know exist. People who were watching from a distance. People who needed to see someone do what they're too afraid to do. People who've been drowning in obligation and people-pleasing and fake loyalty. And then they saw you. They saw you make the move. And something inside them shifted. You became the example, the proof, the living, breathing evidence that you can choose yourself and survive, that you can walk away from toxicity and not combust into flames of regret, that you can disappoint people who never truly respected you and still sleep like a champion at night. You didn't just escape, you gave permission. Silent, unspoken, cosmic permission for others to do the same. And they're out there right now. Strangers who will never message you, never thank you, never even know your full story. But they remember the day you stopped shrinking, and it changed the entire trajectory of their life. Let me paint the picture for you. You were stuck, weren't you? Stuck in a relationship that drained you, stuck in a friendship that only called when they needed something, stuck in a job that turned your soul into dust, stuck in a family dynamic that treated you like the emotional support animal, stuck playing a role you never auditioned for, and every single day you woke up feeling like you were buried alive in obligations that weren't even you. But you stayed, because that's what good people do, right? They stay, they sacrifice, they endure. They smile through the suffering and call it loyalty. Until one day, one random, unremarkable morning, something snapped. Maybe it was a comment. Maybe it was a tone. Maybe it was just the weight of one more expectation landing on your chest like a boulder. And you realized, this is it. This is my entire life if I don't move. And so you did. You made the call, you sent the message, you packed the bag, you walked out the door. You chose yourself, and the world erupted. How dare you? How could you, after everything we did for you, after all the time we invested, and you just walk away, like it's nothing, like we're nothing. But here's the thing, it wasn't nothing. It was everything. Because in that moment, you declared to the universe that your peace mattered more than their perception, that your mental health mattered more than their convenience, that your future mattered more than their comfort. And sure, they painted you as the villain. They told the story where you were the one who abandoned them, the one who turned cold, the one who changed. And you know what? They're right. You did change. You went from doormat to danger, from people pleaser to untouchable, from their puppet to your own person. And that, my friend, is the most terrifying transformation they could ever witness. Now let's talk about the ripple effect. Because your selfish move didn't happen in a vacuum. Somewhere out there, a stranger saw your post. saw your silence, saw you thriving after the exit, and they thought, wait, you can actually do that? You can leave and not die? You can disappoint people and still be okay? You can choose yourself, and the sky doesn't fall. That stranger, they've been stuck in the same cycle, same toxic loop, same suffocating situation, but they thought it was permanent. They thought leaving meant weakness. They thought choosing themselves meant they were bad people, until they saw you. Maybe they never spoke to you. Maybe they just observed from the outside. Maybe they saw the way you carried yourself after the decision, the way you didn't crumble, the way you didn't beg for forgiveness, the way you existed in your decision without flinching. And that gave them the courage to make their own move, to finally leave the relationship that was killing them slowly, to finally quit the job that made them hate morning, to finally set the boundary they've been rehearsing in the mirror for years. You became the catalyst, the silent permission slip, the proof that it's possible, and you didn't even know. Because that's the thing about being a legend. You don't always get to see the impact. You don't get the thank you notes, you don't get the recognition. But somewhere in the quiet corners of someone's breaking point, your name was whispered like a mantra. If they did it, I can too. Your selfishness became their salvation. Your courage became their blueprint. Your refusal to stay became their reason to leave. And now they're free. And they owe it to you, even though you'll never know, even though they'll never say it. Your one selfish move created a chain reaction of liberation. And that right there, that's power. Let's go deeper. Let's talk about why they hated you so much for that move. It wasn't really about you being selfish. It was about you exposing them, because when you walked away, when you chose yourself, when you stopped playing the role, you held up a mirror to everyone still stuck. You reminded them that they're choosing to stay, that their misery, their resentment, their exhaustion, it's not inevitable, it's a choice. And that realization, that's unbearable. So instead of facing themselves, they attacked you. They needed you to be wrong. They needed you to fail. They needed you to come crawling back so they could say, see, you can't escape. You need us. But you didn't. You thrived. You healed. You grew. You became unrecognizable in the best possible way. And every step you took forward was a slap in the face to their narrative. You were supposed to regret it. You were supposed to realize you made a mistake. You were supposed to apologize and beg and admit you were wrong. But none of that happened. Instead, you smiled, you laughed, you lived, and that was unforgivable, because it proved that their control was an illusion, that their guilt trips were powerless, that their version of love was actually just manipulation with a bow on it. You became the living proof that they were wrong, and they hate nothing more than being proven wrong. But while they were busy hating you, you were busy becoming someone else's hero. Because out there in the world, someone was watching. Someone who felt trapped. Someone who felt guilty for wanting more. Someone who thought they were selfish for even considering leaving. And then they saw you. They saw you walk away. They saw you survive. They saw you flourish. And something inside them whispered, maybe I can too. Maybe it's not selfish. Maybe it's self-preservation. Maybe it's not cruelty. Maybe it's clarity. Maybe it's not abandonment. Maybe it's evolution. And that thought, that tiny seed of possibility you planted, it grew. And eventually, they made their move too. Now here's where it gets wild. That person you saved without knowing, they went on to save someone else. Because transformation is contagious. Courage is contagious. Freedom is contagious. When someone sees another person break free, it cracks something open inside them. It makes them realize that the cage isn't locked, that the chains aren't real, that the guilt is just a story they've been told so many times. They believed it. And now, because you made that one selfish move, there's a whole chain of people living differently, breathing easier, sleeping better, existing in their own power. And it all traces back to you, the one who dared to be selfish, the one who chose themselves, the one who became the villain in someone else's story so they could be the hero in their own. Let me tell you something they don't teach you in self-help books. Being selfish isn't the opposite of being good. Being selfish is the beginning of being whole, because you can't pour from an empty cup. You can't save everyone while you're drowning. You can't light the way for others while you're lost in the dark. Your selfish move, it wasn't cruelty, it was courage. It wasn't abandonment, it was alignment. It wasn't betrayal, it was breakthrough. And the people who call it selfish, they're the ones who benefited from your self-sacrifice. They're the ones who fed off your guilt. They're the ones who needed you small so they could feel big. Of course they're mad. You just took away their power source. But the people who truly love you are the people who see you, the people who want you whole and happy and free. They celebrated your selfish move. They might not have said it out loud. They might have worried at first, but deep down, they knew. They knew you needed to do it. They knew you were suffocating. They knew you were giving pieces of yourself away until there was nothing left. And when you finally chose yourself, they exhaled. Because they got to see you come back to life. They got to see the light return to your eyes. They got to see you remember who you were before the world convinced you to be smaller. And that was worth every burned bridge, every angry message, every guilt trip, every accusation. Now let's address the strangers, the ones you saved without meeting, because they're everywhere, scrolling through your posts, watching your life from a distance, noticing the shift, noticing the glow, noticing the peace, and they're asking themselves, how did they do it? How did they walk away? How did they survive the guilt? How did they stop caring what people think? And they're searching for the formula, the secret, the trick. But there is no trick. There's only the decision, the one terrifying, exhilarating, irreversible decision to choose yourself. And once you make it, everything changes. Not because the world gets easier, but because you get stronger. Because you finally understand that you're not responsible for other people's happiness. You're not responsible for their comfort. You're not responsible for their version of who you should be. You're only responsible for your own peace, your own growth, your own life. And that realization, that's the key. That's the shift. That's the moment you go from victim to creator, from passenger to driver, from people pleaser to boundary setter. And when other people see that shift, when they witness someone living unapologetically, it does something to them. It wakes them up. It shakes them. It makes them question everything they've been accepting, everything they've been enduring, everything they've been calling normal. And eventually, when the pain gets loud enough, when the resentment gets heavy enough, when the exhaustion becomes unbearable, they remember you. They remember your move, and they make their own. Here's what's beautiful about all of this. You didn't set out to inspire anyone. You weren't trying to be a role model. You weren't trying to change lives. You were just trying to survive. You were just trying to breathe. You were just trying to stop drowning in everyone else's expectations. But in the process of saving yourself, you became a lighthouse, a beacon, a signal to everyone else lost in the storm. You showed them that land exists, that safety is possible, that you don't have to go down with the ship just because you were on it when it started sinking. You can jump, you can swim, you can reach the shore, and you can build a new life on solid ground. And now you're living that life, the one you almost didn't believe was possible, the one where you wake up without dread, where you make decisions based on what you want instead of what others expect, where your energy is yours to spend, where your time is yours to protect, where your peace is non-negotiable. And sure, some people are missing from this version of your life. Some chairs are empty, some numbers are blocked, some bridges are ash. But the ones who stayed, the ones who supported your selfish move, the ones who celebrated your freedom, those are your people. Those are the ones who see you. Those are the ones who love the real you. Not the version you performed, not the version you pretended to be, but the raw, honest, messy, beautiful, real you. So let's talk about legacy. Because that's what you're building now, whether you realize it or not. Every day you wake up and choose yourself. Every time you set a boundary without apologizing. Every moment you prioritize your peace over someone else's comfort. You're writing a new story. You're creating a new standard. You're showing the world that it's possible to be kind without being a doormat, to be loving without being a martyr, to be good without being self-sacrificing to the point of self-destruction. And people are watching, people are learning, people are changing because you changed first. That stranger who saw you walk away from toxicity, they finally left their own toxic situation. That person who watched you set boundaries, they finally said no to the thing that was draining them. That individual who noticed your peace after the decision, they finally chose themselves too. And none of them will probably ever tell you, they'll never send you a message saying thank you for being selfish, because watching you be selfish gave me permission to save my own life. But it happened, it's happening, it will keep happening. Happy because your courage is contagious, your freedom is magnetic, your peace is powerful. And whether you know it or not, you've become the person others look to when they need proof that escape is possible. Let me remind you of something crucial. The people who called you selfish, they're still stuck. They're still miserable. They're still trapped in the same cycles. They're still drowning in the same patterns. And deep down, they're watching you thrive from a distance. And it's eating them alive. Because you were supposed to fail. You were supposed to come back. You were supposed to come back. You were supposed to realize you needed them. But you didn't. You flourished. You glowed. You became more you than you've ever been. And that's the ultimate revenge. Not because you tried to hurt them, but because you simply lived well. Because you simply chose yourself. Because you simply refused to dim your light to make them comfortable in their darkness. And here's the final piece, the part they'll never understand. Your selfish move wasn't just about you. It was about everyone who comes after you. It was about breaking generational patterns. It was about refusing to pass down the trauma. It was about showing others that suffering isn't noble, that martyrdom isn't love, that self-sacrifice isn't required to be worthy. You broke the cycle. You stopped the pattern. You said enough. And that decision, that one selfish, ruthless, beautiful decision, it rippled out into the universe in ways you can't even measure. It touched lives you'll never meet. It saved people you'll never know. It changed futures you'll never see. And that, my friend, that makes you a legend. So walk with your head high. Speak without apologizing. Exist without shrinking. Because you earned this. You survived the guilt. You endured the accusations. You weathered the storm, and you came out the other side more powerful, more authentic, more free than you've ever been. As if no one ever came. They can call you selfish all they want, but you know the truth. That move wasn't selfish. It was survival. It wasn't cruelty. It was clarity. It wasn't betrayal. It was breakthrough. And somewhere out there, someone you've never met is breathing easier because you dared to be selfish first. Someone is sleeping better because you walked away. Someone is living differently because you chose yourself. And that is the legacy of your selfish move. Not destruction, liberation. Not cruelty, courage. Not selfishness, salvation. For you and for everyone brave enough to follow your lead. And let's be honest about something they're too afraid to admit. Your selfish move didn't just crack open a door for strangers. It exposed the entire architecture of their manipulative system. Every guilt trip they ever used on you, every shame tactic they deployed, every emotional hostage situation they engineered, all of it became visible the moment you walked away unscathed. Because if you could leave and survive, if you could choose yourself and flourish, then their entire framework of control was built on lies. And now everyone in their orbit is starting to see it, starting to question it, starting to realize that maybe loyalty isn't supposed to hurt. Maybe love isn't supposed to drain. Maybe connection isn't supposed to feel like captivity. Your exit became the crack in their foundation, and now the whole structure is trembling. Here's what keeps them up at night. It's not that you left. People leave all the time. It's that you left and got better. You left and found peace. You left and discovered a version of yourself they never got to see because they were too busy trying to dim it. They expected you to crash and burn. They were waiting for the breakdown, the desperate phone call, the tearful apology. But instead, you sent postcards from a life they can't even imagine. A life where you wake up excited, where you laugh without forcing it, where you exist without performing, where you breathe without permission. And that terrifies them, because it means they were never the source of your happiness. They were the obstacle to it. Now think about this for a second. That person watching from the shadows, that stranger who needed to see your move. They're not just living better, they're multiplying the impact. They're telling their own story now. They're sitting across from someone who's stuck and saying, listen, I know someone who walked away from everything, and they didn't just survive, they became unstoppable. And now that person is considering their own selfish move, and the cycle continues. Your courage became their courage. Their courage becomes someone else's courage. And suddenly there's this underground network of people who all trace their freedom back to that one moment when you said enough, when you chose yourself, when you made the move that everyone said was wrong but felt so undeniably right. You started a revolution without even trying, just by refusing to die quietly in a situation that was killing you. So, here's your reminder on the days when the guilt tries to creep back in. They tell you ignorance is bliss. What a sick joke. Bliss? No. Ignorance is a warm, suffocating blanket wrapped around a corpse. It rots the mind while keeping the soul sedated. But you ripped that blanket off. You saw the strings, the ugly, twisted hands pulling them. And now you can't go back to sleep. The world is a grand stage, a puppet show where the audience claps on cue, laughs on command, and bows when told. You see it. You watch them play along, swallowing every lie like it's their favorite meal. And when you try to whisper the truth, they look at you like you're the mad one. They don't hate the truth, no. They hate you for carrying it. Because if you're right, if the world is built on lies, then what does that make them? Complicit, cowards, fool. So they push you away. They call you crazy, difficult, dangerous. Why? Because the truth isn't gentle. It doesn't tuck them in at night and kiss them on the forehead. It rips the mask off and shows them the monster in the mirror. And trust me, they can't handle that. They tell you they fear the dark. Lies. It's not the darkness that sends chills down their spine. It's what the darkness whispers, what it unearths from the shadows. The things they bury deep, pretending they never existed. You see, people don't fear the unknown. They fear what they already know, but refuse to admit. So, you speak. You say the words they avoid. You expose the cracks in their perfect little world. Watch their faces. First, the nervous chuckle, the forced smile, denial, the mind's favorite trick. But then, their eyes widen, their breath hitches, the color drains from their cheeks. That's fear, not of you, no, but of the truth you just handed them on a silver platter. You just became the villain, not because you lied, no, but because you refused to, because you held up the mirror and forced them to look. And what did they see? Weakness, lies, a carefully crafted illusion crumbling before their eyes, and rather than face it, rather than accept it, they turn on you. You see, people aren't looking for truth. They're looking for comfort. They want their delusions dressed up in pretty words, wrapped in silk and spoon-fed to them like a bedtime story. They crave reassurance, not revelation. So when you show them reality, raw and unfiltered, they lash out, like a child screaming at the parent who just turned on the lights. And they'll call you names, they'll call you cruel, bitter, heartless, dangerous, because the truth, my friend, is not a lullaby. It's a war drum, and once you beat it, the whole world comes running, not to listen, but to silence it. But let them be afraid. Let them choke on their own illusions, because while they cower behind their fragile fantasies, you walk in the dark, unafraid. You see what they won't. You know what they can't. And in a world of blind men, the one who sees is the most feared of all. Truth is a curse whispered in the ears of the damned. Oh, you thought truth was a gift, a shining sword meant to cut through the lies. No, truth is poison, bitter, burning, a slow-killing venom that turns the world against you the moment it drips from your tongue. You think they'll thank you for it? No, no, no. They'll crucify you for it. Look through history. The truth-tellers, the system calls them mad. The rebels, the outcasts, the ones who refuse to kneel. Where are they now? Buried, burned, exiled. Socrates, poisoned. Galileo, silenced. Jesus, nailed to wood like a warning sign. The message is always the same. Speak the truth and you will suffer. But you already knew that, didn't you? You've felt it. The stares, the whispers, the way they turn on you the moment you say something that doesn't fit their script. 1 second, you're a friend, a brother, a voice in the crowd. And the next, you're dangerous, unpredictable, someone who needs to be handled. You see, people don't hate lies. They worship them. Lies make them feel safe, comfortable, important. And when you rip those lies away, oh, now you're the villain. Now you're the monster who ruined their dream. And they will punish you for that. They will call you arrogant, delusional, cruel. They will strip you of your name, your reputation, your place in the world. They will break you if they can, not because you were wrong, but because you were right. And that is unforgivable. And so the truth-teller walks alone, not because they want to, but because they have to. Because the world does not reward those who open its eyes. No, it blinds them, binds them, buries them beneath its fear. But here's the real question. Do you have the stomach to keep speaking? Or will they silence you first? Sanity is a game they rigged. Play along or be labeled insane. Oh, you thought sanity was about logic, about reason? No, no, no. It's about obedience. It's about knowing when to smile, when to nod, when to keep your mouth shut and pretend you don't see the cracks in the walls. Sanity isn't about thinking. It's about agreeing. But you refuse to play. You don't nod when you're supposed to. You ask the wrong questions. You see the puppet strings. And worse, you say something. And just like that, the room goes silent. The air grows thick. And suddenly, they're all looking at you like you just spoke in tongue. Ah, there it is, the label. Crazy, unstable, dangerous. They whisper it behind your back, say it with a nervous smile, as if they're hoping it'll stick. Because if you're crazy, then they don't have to listen to you. If you're crazy, then they don't have to question the reality they've been swallowing like cheap liquor. You see, the world has a trick. It doesn't debate truth. It discredits the one who speaks it. They can't argue with you, so they label you. Make you a joke, a cautionary tale, a wild dog barking at shadows. And if that doesn't work, they'll try to break you, drown you in doubt, make you wonder if maybe, just maybe, they're right. But here's the secret. The greatest minds, the ones who shifted the world, were always called mad first. Nietzsche, insane. Van Gogh, madman. Tesla, lunatic. Every genius, every revolutionary, every soul who dared to see beyond the veil, they tried to lock them away, shut them up, bury them beneath the weight of their own brilliance. Because the truth is this: being misunderstood is the loudest sign that you are on to something real. They don't fear you because you're wrong. They fear you because you might be right. And if you're right, then their whole world, their rules, their sanity, it's built on lies. So let them call you crazy. Let them laugh, let them sneer, let them whisper behind your back. Because history remembers the ones who didn't fit. And as for the ones who played along, no one remembers them at all. A beautiful lie is a lullaby. The truth, a siren screaming at midnight. You see, people don't want to wake up. They want to sleep. They want to float in their dream world, wrapped in soft illusions, believing everything is fine. They don't want to open their eyes and see the cracks in their reality. They don't want to admit that the house is burning, because then they'd have to do something about it. And so they cling to the lies that soothe them, cling to the illusions that tell them they are safe, loved, important. They build their little castles in the sand, convinced they'll stand forever. And when you come along with the storm, with the truth, with the cold, hard reality, the weak, the fragile, the ones too afraid to face themselves, they despise truth. Because truth demands change. Truth demands strength. And strength, that's a burden they're not willing to carry. It's easier to believe the pretty little fairy tales, easier to pretend, to smile through the rot. But you see through it. You tear down the curtains. You expose the ugly, the raw, the real. And the moment you do, they turn on you. Because you are not just a voice. They see you as an attack, an infection, a disease that threatens the illusion they have worked so hard to maintain. You ever notice how they get angry when you tell the truth? Not sad, not contemplative, angry. That's not the reaction of someone who was deceived. It's the reaction of someone who wanted to be deceived. They lash out, spit venom, try to tear you down just to keep their world intact. Because if they admit you are right, if they accept the truth you carry, then their whole life, it was a lie. So let them scream, let them rage, let them bleed from the wounds truth has carved into their fragile little minds. Because at the end of the day, it is better to be hated for truth than loved for a lie. And when their illusions finally crumble, when the smoke fades, and all that's left is reality, they'll realize you were right all along, but by then, it'll be too late. Every kingdom burns when one man refuses to kneel. That's all it takes, one. One person who refuses to bow, refuses to follow, refuses to play their little game. One person who steps out of line and says no. And suddenly, the whole system starts shaking. The illusion starts cracking. Because if one man can stand, then what's stopping the rest? You see, power isn't real. Control? It's a trick, a magic act, a house of cards built on fear. They keep people small by feeding them the illusion that resistance is impossible, that change is a dream, that truth is too dangerous. But the moment one man stands, the moment one woman refuses to break, the lie is exposed. The curtain is ripped away, and suddenly the entire empire looks fragile. That's why they fear you. Not because you're strong, not because you're loud, but because you refuse to kneel. And that, well, that is contagious. That is wildfire. That is the kind of rebellion that spreads through whispers, through glances, through the quiet, unshakable power of someone who knows the truth and refuses to be broken by it. But listen closely, because here's the part they don't tell you. When you carry the truth, it gets heavy. It burns. It carves into you. You will be tested, broken, pushed to the edge of madness. They will call you a fool. They will try to silence you, discredit you, turn you into a villain, just to keep their fragile little world intact. So what do? Do you scream? Do you fight? Do you throw yourself into the fire, reckless and unguarded? No. No, no, no. You move in the shadows. You learn the art of silence, the power of patience. You watch, you wait. You strike when they least expect it, because rebellion, true rebellion, is not about noise. It's about precision. You do not let their fear become your burden. You do not let their doubt infect you. You carry the truth, but you do not let it break you. Because the strongest revolutionaries, the ones who truly change the world, they are not the loudest. They are the ones who survive. You will walk alone, but you will walk free. That's the trade, the cost, the blood price of truth. You don't get to hold it and still belong. No, no, no. The moment you see the world for what it is, you become a stranger in it. The crowds move one way, blind, obedient, numb, while you walk in the opposite direction. Alone. The truth is a blade that cuts two ways. It frees you and it isolates you. Because people don't just hate what they don't understand. They fear it. They fear you. The way you see through their masks. The way you refuse to bow to their illusions. They'll call you bitter, cynical, a misfit, not because you are, but because you refuse to pretend like they do. But here's where they get it wrong. Aloneness is not loneliness. No, no. Being alone is where you find power, where you sharpen yourself, unchained from the noise, the distractions, the nonsense. Look at history. Every warrior, every visionary, every untouchable mind, they walked this road. They embraced the silence. And in that silence, they became unstoppable. See, they think you're lost. That without the crowd, without the validation, without the constant noise, you'll crumble. They don't realize you were made for this. You thrive in the quiet. You rebuild in the shadows. You grow when no one is watching. And when you finally step back into the light, you're not the same. You're something else entirely. Something they can't control. So let them talk. Let them misunderstand you. Let them call you crazy, cold, distant. What they call loneliness, you call freedom. What they fear, you embrace. And when the time comes, when they finally realize their chains and look for a way out, they'll turn to you. But by then, you won't need them anymore. When you stop needing their approval, you become untouchable. That's the secret. That's the game changer. The moment their opinions become meaningless to you, you become something else entirely. Something terrifying, something free. Because control, it only works on those who crave acceptance. But you're done playing that game. You see, most people are prisoners. Not of bars, not of walls, but of opinions. Their whole existence built around fitting in, being liked, avoiding rejection. They bend, they shrink, they trade their own minds for approval. Pathetic. And the worst part? They don't even realize they're slaves. But you do. Oh, you do. And that's why they fear you. Because you don't need them. You don't need their applause, their validation, their fake little smiles. You are something they can't understand. Someone who moves without permission, speaks without hesitation, acts without fear, and that makes you untouchable. They'll test you, push you, try to drag you back into their game. Ignore it. Let them talk. Let them whisper. Let them throw their little stones. You're beyond it now. You walk through their insults like smoke, unbothered, unmoved. And the best part? The more you stop caring, the more power you have. Because here's the truth. When you stop needing them, you become something they can never break. You become the storm, the chaos, the force they can't control. And soon, oh, soon they'll realize they were never judging you. No, no, no. They were begging for your courage. Every dagger they throw is a stepping stone to your throne. Let them talk. Let them doubt. Let them spew their little insults, their petty rejections, their backhanded laughter. Every word, every sneer, every attempt to break you, it's fuel. Oh, they don't know it yet, but all they're doing is building your fire. You see, weak people hate what they can't control. They hate what they can't break. And they hate you, not because you've wronged them, not because you've failed. No, no. They hate you because you refuse to stay small. You refuse to play by their rules. You refuse to apologize for being more. Good. Let them hate. Let them throw their stones. You don't shrink. You don't run. You collect those stones, stack them high, and build your empire. Because every time they doubt you, every time they whisper your name with venom, every time they say you'll never make it, they give you another reason to rise. They don't understand yet. Hate is energy, and energy can't be destroyed, only redirected. So you take it, you absorb it, you transform it into something greater, something stronger, something they can never touch. Because while they're wasting breath trying to tear you down, you're too busy climbing higher. And when you finally reach the top, when you've turned their doubts into dominance, their insults into armor, their hate into fuel, you don't even look back. Not for revenge, not for validation, not for anything. Because by then, they're nothing but dust in your rearview mirror. You feared the truth. Now, you'll fear the one who carries it. Oh, how the tables turn, how the whispers shift, how the eyes that once looked down on you now refuse to meet yours. Once, they mocked you. Once, they called you a fool. Now they call you dangerous. Do you see it? Do you feel it? That shift in the air, that tension in their voices, that's fear. Not fear of what you've done, not fear of what you've said, fear of what you've become. Because you didn't break, you didn't fold, you became something they can't define. Something they tried to bury you under their lies. They tried to drown you in their illusions. But the truth doesn't stay buried. And now, you wear it like armor, walk with it like a blade at your side. You are the embodiment of everything they denied, everything they feared. And they don't know what to do with you anymore. See, the moment you embrace your truth, fully, unapologetically, you stop playing their game. And that terrifies them. Because people like you don't ask for permission, you don't wait for approval, you don't need their acceptance, their validation, their pathetic little comforts. You take what's yours. And here's the final twist, the part that really keeps them up at night. You were never meant to fit in, never meant to play it safe, to nod along, to pretend you didn't see what was right in front of you. You were meant to change the game, to break it, rebuild it. reshape it in your own image. And now they laugh nervously because they know, oh, they know, they can't handle the truth you carry, and now they can't handle you. Ah, welcome back, you beautiful contradictions, you walking paradoxes, you smiling assassins who learn to weaponize kindness. They're still trying to figure you out, aren't they? Still trying to understand how someone so soft could be so lethal, how someone with angel eyes could have demon strategy, how you smiled at them with warmth while simultaneously dismantling their entire game plan 3 moves ahead. They thought your gentleness was weakness, your patience was ignorance, your silence was surrender. But what they failed to realize, what they couldn't possibly comprehend, is that you weren't playing checkers while they played chess. You were playing chess while they were still learning how to spell the word. Let's talk about that smile, shall we? That beautiful, disarming, absolutely devastating smile. They saw it and thought innocent. They saw it and thought harmless. They saw it and thought easy target. They looked at your face and made the fatal mistake of thinking your exterior matched your interior. They thought the softness of your features meant softness in your mind. They thought the light in your eyes meant light in your intentions. But what they didn't know, what they couldn't see, is that smile wasn't a greeting. It was a warning. It was the calm before the storm. It was the silence before the explosion. That smile was you saying, go ahead, underestimate me. I dare you. You see, they expected aggression. They were prepared for confrontation. They had their defenses ready for someone who would come at them with fire and fury. But you came with flowers and left them in ruins. You came with kindness and left them confused. You came with grace and left them completely destroyed. Because while they were busy preparing for war, you were busy winning it. While they were sharpening their swords, you were poisoning their water supply. While they were learning the rules, you were rewriting them. And all the while, that smile never faded. That beautiful, terrifying, absolutely lethal smile that said, I'm 3 timelines ahead of you, and you don't even know the game has started. They thought they were playing against an amateur, but they were playing against a master who'd learned to hide their expertise behind humility. They thought they were facing someone naive, but they were facing someone who'd weaponized their own underestimation. You let them think you didn't understand the game. You let them believe you were too kind to play dirty. You let them assume your morals would be your downfall. And that's exactly how you won. Because while they were busy monologuing about their superiority, you were quietly capturing their queen. While they were celebrating moves they thought were brilliant, you were setting traps they wouldn't see until it was far too late. You played the long game while they were focused on instant gratification. You sacrificed pawns they thought were victories while protecting the pieces that actually matter. And here's the part that breaks them the most. You never changed your expression. You never showed your hand. You never let them see the calculation behind those gentle eyes. You smiled through every move, every counter, every devastating play that left them scrambling. They kept waiting for you to show your true colors, but your true color was always this: a player so advanced they made mastery look like mercy. A strategist so skilled they made warfare look like kindness. A mind so sharp it could cut through their ego without them even feeling the blade, until they were already bleeding out on the board. Remember when they first saw you? Remember that moment when they looked at you and thought they had you figured out in 3 seconds flat? They saw the warmth in your presence and cataloged you as soft. They heard the gentleness in your voice and filed you under pushover. They witnessed your patience and labeled you passive. They made a fundamental error that would cost them everything. They confused your choice not to engage with an inability to compete. They mistook your strategic silence for confusion. They interpreted your careful observation as hesitation. But you were doing something they couldn't comprehend. You were studying them like a scientist studies bacteria under a microscope, cataloging every weakness, noting every pattern, memorizing every tell. While they were busy talking, you were listening. While they were busy showing off, you were learning. While they were busy celebrating their perceived dominance, you were building a complete psychological profile of every single one of them. You knew how they thought before they thought it. You could predict their moves before they made them. You understood their motivations better than they understood themselves. And all of this knowledge, all of this insight, all of this devastating awareness, you kept hidden behind that smile. That patient, understanding, completely disarming smile that made them feel safe while you were constructing their downfall, piece by piece, move by move, breath by breath. They made jokes about you, didn't they? Behind your back, they laughed. To your face, they patronized. They treated you like a child who'd stumbled into an adult conversation. They explained things you already understood better than they ever would. They offered advice you'd already surpassed years ago, and you let them. You let them feel superior. You let them believe their own hype. You let them think they were the smartest person in the room while you were quietly becoming the most dangerous. Because you understood something they never would. Real power doesn't announce itself. True intelligence doesn't need validation. Actual mastery doesn't require an audience. You played dumb while getting smarter. You played weak while getting stronger. You played lost while mapping every single exit, entrance, and trapdoor in their entire operation. The beautiful irony is they thought they were teaching you the game, but you were teaching them a lesson they'd never forget. Every time they explained something condescendingly, you were learning their blind spots. Every time they underestimated your intelligence, you were cataloging their arrogance as a weakness to exploit later. Every time they dismissed your input, you were noting exactly which pieces of information they valued and which they ignored, giving you a perfect blueprint of where their defenses were strongest, and more importantly, where they were laughably weak. You turned their ego into your weapon. You transformed their pride into your ammunition. You weaponized their certainty that they were better than you, and that weapon would eventually destroy them completely. And here's what really gets them, what really keeps them up at night trying to figure out where it all went wrong. You were never playing their game. You were never following their rules. You were never even on their board. While they thought you were struggling to keep up, you were building an entirely new game they didn't even know existed. While they were celebrating winning battles, you were ending the war. While they were focused on capturing your pieces, you'd already captured something far more valuable. Their trust, their confidence, their complete and utter certainty that they knew who you were. And when you finally made your move, when you finally showed them what you'd been building this entire time, the shock on their faces was worth every second of being underestimated. The confusion in their eyes when they realized they'd been playing checkers against someone who'd been orchestrating a military campaign was the sweetest victory you'd ever tasted. Let's talk about what was happening behind that smile, shall we? Because while your face showed kindness, your mind was running calculations that would make quantum computers jealous. Every conversation was data collection. Every interaction was reconnaissance. Every seemingly casual question was strategic intelligence gathering disguised as friendly curiosity. They thought you were making small talk, but you were building psychological dossiers. They thought you were being polite, but you were identifying pressure points. They thought you were just naturally curious, but you were mapping their entire mental architecture, finding every crack, every weakness, every point of structural failure that you could exploit when the time was right. You listened to their stories and learned their fears. You watched their reactions and discovered their triggers. You noted who they respected, who they dismissed, who they loved, who they hated, and most importantly, who they underestimated. Besides you, you cataloged their speech patterns to predict their thinking patterns. You studied their body language to understand their unspoken truths. You paid attention to what they didn't say, because the silences told you more than their words ever could. And all of this information, this massive database of human behavior and psychological vulnerability, you processed in real time while maintaining that gentle, harmless, absolutely devastating smile that kept them completely off guard. They never suspected a thing because you'd mastered the art of looking exactly how they wanted you to look. When they needed someone soft, you appeared soft. When they needed someone confused, you appeared confused. When they needed someone to dismiss, you gave them every reason to dismiss you. You became a mirror reflecting back exactly what would make them most comfortable, most confident, most catastrophically wrong about who they were dealing with. You studied their egos like a mechanic studies an engine, learning exactly which parts needed stroking, which needed challenging, which needed ignoring to keep the machine running exactly how you needed it to run. And here's the genius of your approach. You never once lied. You never once pretended to be something you weren't. You simply allowed them to make assumptions while you strategically chose which parts of yourself to reveal and which to keep hidden. You let them see your kindness, but not your strategy. You showed them your patience, but not your calculation. You displayed your gentleness, but concealed your ruthlessness. You were always exactly who you were, but you controlled the narrative of their perception so masterfully, they thought they knew you when they'd only seen the tip of an iceberg that could sink their entire fleet. The calculation never stopped. Even in moments of genuine connection, even in times of real vulnerability, even when you actually cared about them, there was always a part of your mind running the numbers, adjusting the strategy, preparing for contingencies, not because you're cold, but because you learn the hard way that the world doesn't reward naivety. You learn that kindness without awareness is weak. You learned that trust without verification is stupidity. So you became someone who could be genuinely warm while simultaneously being strategically brilliant. Someone who could care about people while also being prepared for them to betray you. Someone who could smile with real affection while keeping 3 backup plans in your pocket, just in case that affection wasn't returned with equal loyalty. Now we arrive at the beautiful part. The moment when all that patience, all that observation, all that strategic silence starts paying dividends they never saw coming. You'd been building this trap for months, maybe years, and they walked into it thinking it was a garden party. Every piece was positioned perfectly. Every escape route was covered. Every contingency was planned for. And they had absolutely no idea they were already captured, already defeated, already finished. They were still making moves thinking they were winning while you'd already declared checkmate 3 different ways they hadn't noticed yet. You gave them exactly what they wanted, If they needed to feel superior, you gave them opportunities to feel superior. If they needed to feel intelligent, you asked questions that let them explain things. If they needed to feel powerful, you showed deference that fed their ego until it was so bloated they could barely see past it. You turned their desires into chains. You transformed their needs into traps. You weaponized their hunger for validation and used it to lead them exactly where you needed them to be. And the entire time, that smile never wavered. That gentle, patient, absolutely lethal smile that said, "Keep going. You're doing exactly what I need you to do." The beauty of your trap is it didn't look like a trap. It looked like weakness. It looked like opportunity. It looked like an easy win. So they rushed in without checking for wires, without testing the ground, without questioning why someone who seemed so harmless was suddenly so accessible. They were so focused on what they thought they were taking from you that they never noticed what you were taking from them. Their time, their resources, their attention, their trust, their secrets, their power. You were redistributing everything they had while they were busy thinking they were exploiting you. You were dismantling their entire operation while they were celebrating what they thought was your downfall. And here's where your genius really shows. You didn't just trap them, you made them trap themselves. Every move they made to exploit you was actually a move that strengthened your position. Every attempt to manipulate you was actually them walking deeper into your manipulation. Every time they thought they were playing you, they were actually playing themselves. You turned their own strategy against them so completely they're still trying to figure out where their plan ended and yours began. You made them feel like puppet masters while you held every single string, and they pulled themselves into knots, thinking they were pulling yours. The timing was perfect because you'd been patient enough to wait for the exact right moment, not too early when they might still be cautious, not too late when they might have moved on. You waited until they were completely committed, completely invested, completely convinced of their superiority. You waited until their guard was at its lowest, because their confidence was at its highest. You waited until they'd bet everything on you being who they thought you were. And then, and only then, did you start showing them who you actually are. Not all at once. That would be too merciful. Slowly, gradually, with that same patient smile, you began revealing that the angel they thought they knew had always been playing chess while they were still trying to figure out which piece was the king. The moment they realized what you'd done, that moment when the pieces finally clicked into place and they understood they'd been outplayed from the very beginning, that's the moment they'll remember for the rest of their lives. You watched their faces shift from confusion to recognition to horror to respect to fear, all in the span of seconds. You saw the exact instant when their perception of you shattered and reformed into something they should have seen all along. You witnessed their reality cracking as they understood that every assumption they'd made was wrong. Every conclusion they'd drawn was manipulated. Every victory they'd celebrated was actually a step deeper into your strategy. They went back through every interaction in their minds, didn't they? Replaying conversations with new understanding, seeing the game within the game, recognizing the traps they'd walked into while thinking they were setting them. Every kind word you'd spoken suddenly had layers they hadn't considered. Every gentle suggestion suddenly looked like strategic positioning. Every moment of apparent vulnerability suddenly revealed itself as calculated exposure that got them exactly where you needed them. A 9, a kid, and all just results. all just makes. They're all just miss. They realized you hadn't been reacting to their moves. You'd been directing them. You hadn't been playing defense. You'd been conducting an orchestra. And every note they'd played, even the ones they thought were improvised, had been written in your score from the beginning. The questions started pouring out. How long were you planning this? Longer than you think. When did you know? Probably before you even introduced yourself. Was any of it real? The parts that mattered were, but you'll never know which parts those were. Why didn't I see this coming? Because you were too busy looking down at me to notice I was looking right through you. The interrogation in their eyes was desperate, trying to salvage some sense of control, some piece of ego, some shred of the narrative where they were still the intelligent ones and you were still the naive one they'd believed in. But that narrative was gone, burned, completely obliterated by the reality that they'd been intellectually and strategically dominated by someone they dismissed as harmless. And here's what breaks them beyond repair. You're not angry. You're not vindictive. You're not cruel about your victory. You're still smiling that same gentle smile, but now they understand what it means. Now they recognize it for what it always was, not kindness mistaken for weakness, but power wrapped in patience. You're not celebrating their defeat because you never saw this as a competition. To compete with them would require you to see them as equals, and you stopped seeing them that way the moment they underestimated you. You were never trying to beat them, you were teaching them a lesson about assumptions, about ego, about the danger of judging a player by their appearance rather than their performance. They want you to gloat. They're waiting for the villain monologue where you explain your brilliance and mock their stupidity. But you won't give them that either, because you understand something they never will. Real power doesn't need to announce itself. True victory doesn't require acknowledgement. Actual mastery speaks through results, not explanations. So you just smile, that devastating smile they finally understand, and you let the board speak for itself. Checkmate, game over, lesson learned. They really do. And the most terrifying part for them is knowing that if you could do this once, if you could orchestrate this entire operation while appearing harmless, what else have you done? What else are you capable of? What other games are you playing right now that they don't even know exist? Now, they can't look at anyone the same way. You've fundamentally altered how they perceive the world. Because you shattered their confidence in their own judgment. Every person they meet now, they wonder, are they playing me like that? Every kind gesture they receive, they question the motivation. The world thinks it knows you. What a joke. They see a name, a face, a history scribbled in ink, stamped with labels they created. But you are something else, something deeper, something they will never understand. Because even you haven't met your truest self yet. Look at you, waking up every day, slipping into a version of yourself that they find acceptable. A puppet in their little show, smiling when they expect it, bowing when they demand it. Living within the lines they drew for you like a prisoner who's convinced the cage is home. But the real you? Oh, the real you is buried, locked away, a shadow lurking beneath the surface, waiting to be unleashed. You feel it, don't you? That pull in your gut, that whisper in the back of your mind, the part of you that doesn't beg, doesn't explain, doesn't care about their rules. It's the fire you've been taught to extinguish, the storm you were told to silence, because if you ever tapped into that, you wouldn't fit in anymore. You wouldn't be nice. You wouldn't be safe. And that terrifies them. So they distract you, flood you with nonsense, tell you who you should be, what you should want, how you should behave, and like a good little puppet you dance. But one day, one day, that string will snap, and when it does, they won't know what hit them. Because the moment you stop trying to be what they expect, the moment you step into the unknown, the untamed, the unstoppable force that you truly are, that's the moment you become something they fear. Not a puppet, not a follower, not a pawn in their game. You become a mystery. And mysteries are dangerous. Because no one can predict what comes next. They wrote your story without your permission. A neat little script, full of roles you never agreed to play. The obedient one, the predictable one, the one who stays in line. But tell me, since when did you become a character in their story? Since when did their opinions become law? Burn it. Every last page. Set fire to their expectations, their labels, their ridiculous assumptions, because you were never meant to be contained within their words. You are not a product of their imagination. You are something they will never understand, something they fear. Society is funny, isn't it? They scream at you to be yourself, but the second you step outside their little box, they panic. No, not like that, they say. Tone it down, fit in, behave. Behave. Oh, they have no idea who they're dealing with. You are not their creation. You are not their puppet. You are something much, much greater. A force they cannot predict, a presence they cannot ignore. And deep down, that scares them more than anything. Because the second you stop playing along, their illusion shatters. They told you who to be, they told you what to want, but they forgot something, didn't they? They forgot that you decide, that you hold the pen now, and if they thought they could write your destiny without your consent, well, they're about to learn a very painful lesson. Rip their script to shreds, take back the narrative, write something they never saw coming. Because your true self is not some fragile, moldable thing. It is sharp, it is untamed, it is undeniable. And the best part? They'll never see you coming. A storm never warns the sky before it strikes. It doesn't ask permission, it doesn't seek approval, it just happens. Unapologetic, unstoppable. And you are that storm, a force they can't predict, a presence they can't control, and that terrifies them. People fear what they cannot understand. They crave patterns, routines, a sense of control. But you refuse to be figured out. You slip through their grasp like smoke, leaving them uneasy, restless, wondering what comes next. And that is power. Predictability is weakness. It makes you easy to manipulate, easy to contain. They want to read you like an open book, trace your footsteps, anticipate your next move. So don't give them the satisfaction. The moment they think they've got you all figured out, flip the script. Change the game. Destroy the patterns, keep them guessing, because when they don't know what's coming, they can't prepare. And when they can't prepare, they can't stop you. Look at history. The most dangerous ones, The ones who reshaped the world were never predictable. They didn't follow rules. They didn't wait for permission. They moved in silence. They struck when no one was looking. And when the dust settled, they were the only ones left standing. So tell me, why should you be any different? Why should you be easy to read? If they think they know you, let them believe their own delusions. If they assume you're weak, smile and play along. And then, when the moment is right, remind them exactly why underestimating you was their first and final mistake. A storm doesn't announce itself. A shadow doesn't ask to be seen. And you don't owe them an explanation. Stay quiet, stay sharp, and when the time comes, strike. Real power isn't loud. It doesn't need to announce itself. It doesn't demand validation. It simply is. A quiet force that shifts the air in a room, making people uneasy without a single word. And that is what they will never understand. The strongest ones don't seek attention. They don't parade their strength like desperate fools trying to prove something. No, the real monsters, the real kings, they sit back and watch. They listen, they calculate, and when they strike, it's already too late. Silence is not weakness. It's a blade sharper than any insult, deadlier than any roar. The loud ones, they expose themselves. They reveal their every move, their every fear, their every insecurity. But the ones who stay quiet, they are the ones you should fear. A lion doesn't warn its prey before the kill. The wind doesn't whisper before the storm tears the world apart. And you don't need to explain yourself. Let them wonder. Let them fear what they can't predict. Because the more they talk, the more they give away. But you absorb, you learn, and when the moment is right, you make them regret ever doubting you. They will try to provoke you. They will test your patience, try to drag you into their noise. But tell me, have you ever seen a wolf bark back at a dog? No. The wolf knows what it is. The wolf doesn't need to prove anything. The wolf waits, and when it moves, it doesn't waste a single motion. Power isn't in the volume of your voice, it's in the weight of your silence. It's in the way people feel your presence even when you say nothing at all. It's in the way they second-guess themselves when they stand before you, uncertain, intimidated, afraid. So stay silent, stay calculating, let them underestimate you, because when the blade finally falls, they'll realize the sharpest ones are the ones they never saw coming. A mask isn't deception, it's strategy. A weapon sharper than any blade, deadlier than any bullet. The greatest warriors don't charge into battle with their emotions on display. No, they move with precision, cloaked in mystery, revealing only what they want you to see. The Joker doesn't wear a mask to hide, he wears it to control the narrative, to make them question, to make them fear what they don't understand. And that is power, because when they can't read you, they can't predict you, and when they can't predict you, they can't stop you. People will demand the real you. They will beg to see behind the curtain. Don't fall for it. The moment you hand them your truth, you give them the weapon to use against you. They will twist it, manipulate it, use it to control you. And before you know it, you are theirs. No, that's not how this game is played. You decide what they see. You choose what they believe. Some days, you're the fool, laughing in the face of danger. Other days, you're the storm, tearing down everything in your path. Keep them guessing, keep them desperate to understand you. Look at the world, the ones who wear their hearts on their sleeves, they are the first to fall. They cry for honesty, for authenticity, while the real kings sit back, masked, unreadable, untouchable. The true masters don't expose themselves. So wear your mask with pride. Let them wonder, let them doubt. Because in the end, it doesn't matter who you really are. It only matters who they think you are. And by the time they figure it out, the game is already over, and you have won. The only thing scarier than your enemies is the version of you they haven't met yet. They have no idea what you're capable of. Hell, even you don't. Not yet. Because you've been conditioned to play small, to be humble, to fit inside a cage built by hands that fear what you could become. But cages weren't made for predators. They were made to contain them. Most people are afraid of their own power, afraid of what might happen if they fully embraced the chaos inside, the darkness, the hunger. But let me tell you something. Fear is a leash, and those who hold it will always keep you on your knees. Break the leash, rip it from their hands. There is nothing in you that should be feared, except by them. Because when you stop running from your power, when you own it, they lose control, and the game, it shifts in your favor. You've spent your whole life at war with yourself, fighting against the very thing that makes you dangerous. But tell me, what happens when you stop resisting? When you stop apologizing for being more than what they expected? I'll tell you what happens. They panic. They need you to doubt yourself. Because the moment you don't, the moment you step into that undeniable version of yourself, the whole damn world has to adjust. No more shrinking, no more waiting, no more asking for permission. You are not weak. You are not lost. You are becoming. And when the day comes that you finally meet the version of you that fears nothing, not their judgment, not their rejection, not even yourself, that will be the day they realize they should have been afraid all along. They need a crowd to feel powerful. You only need a mirror. Watch them, clawing for attention, desperate for someone, anyone, to tell them they matter. They move like puppets, their strings pulled by every like, every comment, every fleeting whisper of approval. But what happens when the applause stops? When the audience moves on? They crumble. Weak minds need a crowd. They need to be seen to feel real. Their worth is borrowed, stitched together by the opinions of others. And the moment that approval fades, they fade with it. But you don't need a stage. You don't need a standing ovation. You only need yourself. Power isn't found in the hands of the many. It's found in the soul of the one who refuses to beg for it. When you validate yourself, the world has no choice but to follow. When you decide you are enough, suddenly their opinions become background noise. Think about it. The moment you stop chasing their approval, you become untouchable. They can't control you. They can't manipulate you with their fake praise, their backhanded compliments, their temporary affection, because you see through it, because you don't need it. Most people are slaves to validation. They would rather be liked than be free. But not you. You don't shrink to fit their mold. You shatter it. You own yourself in a way that makes them uncomfortable, and that's why they fear you. You don't ask for permission to be powerful. You don't wait for someone to crown you. You wear your worth like armor, unshaken, untouchable, and that is a power they will never understand. A wolf in sheep's clothing isn't weak, it's patient. Let them laugh, let them scoff, let them convince themselves that you're nothing. It's funny, isn't it? How they mistake silence for weakness? How they think a calm demeanor means there's no fire beneath the surface? Let them be comfortable in their ignorance. It makes the fall so much sweeter. The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was making the world believe he didn't exist. And you walk the same path. You don't need to show them your strength. You don't need to prove anything, because the deadliest weapons are the ones hidden in plain sight. They see what they want to see, a fool, a pushover, someone they can dismiss. They think they've figured you out, wrapped you up in a neat little box. But boxes have edges, and your mind, your power, limitless. The moment they assume they know you, they've already lost. A snake doesn't hiss before it strikes. A storm doesn't send a warning before it tears the sky apart. And you don't need to announce your next move. The quiet ones hold the sharpest blades, and patience is the deadliest game of all. They'll talk big, throw their weight around, flex their temporary power. But power isn't loud. It's the silent force that makes the air thick when you walk into a room. It's the knowledge that you could destroy them, and yet you choose not to. Let them sleep on you. Let them mock, let them ignore, let them believe you are nothing. And when the time is right, when the moment is perfect, that's when you rise. That's when you strike. That's when you remind them that underestimating you was their biggest mistake. No one will hand you power. You have to carve it out of the bones of your old self. No one is coming to save you. No one is going to pick you. The world isn't built on fairness. It's built on force. The strong take, the weak wait. And the ones who hesitate, they're forgotten, buried under the footsteps of those who dared to move first. You sit there, waiting for a sign, a signal, a moment when the universe whispers, "Now is your time." But the universe doesn't whisper. It watches. It tests. It places obstacles in front of you, daring you to break through. And if you don't, someone else will. You weren't born to be led. You weren't made to be given a seat at the table. You are the storm, the force, the inevitable shift in power that no one sees coming. But first, you must dismantle the version of yourself that played by the rules. The old you, the one who waited, who asked, who hoped, kill that version. Burn it, bury it deep, because power doesn't come to the ones who wish. It comes to the ones who demand, to the ones who take without apology, who stand unshaken in the chaos. Look around. Every throne you see was once taken, not given. Every ruler, every leader, every legend, none of them waited for approval. They stepped forward, took the hits, and kept moving. That's the cost. That's the price of being untouchable. Power is a game of will. Who bends? Who breaks? Who refuses to fall even when everything turns against them? The world will test you, beat you, push you to the edge. But if you endure, if you keep standing, you win. So stop waiting, stop hesitating. Take what's yours, or watch someone else claim it. You are the anomaly, the glitch in their system, the force they can't contain. They wanted you to be normal, predictable, another face in the crowd, to follow the script, to stay inside the lines, to shrink yourself into something acceptable. But you were never meant for that. You were never meant to be ordinary. Ordinary is safe. Ordinary is obedient. Ordinary never scares anyone. And you were born to be feared, to disrupt, to break their fragile reality, to be the question no one can answer, the problem they can't solve. The world doesn't know what to do with people like you. It fears the ones who think too much, who see too clearly, who refuse to be controlled. So they'll try to name you, label you, call you crazy, because that's what people do when they can't define something. Let them. Let them call you whatever makes them sleep better at night. But deep down, they know the truth. You don't fit their mold, because you were never made for it. You weren't designed to be part of their system. You were made to break it. The strongest ones, the most dangerous minds, they don't look for a place to belong. They create their own. They walk alone. They carry a fire inside them that no one can put out. And you are that fire. So stop apologizing for being different. Stop explaining yourself to people who will never understand. They don't need to get you. They don't need to approve of you. Because by the time they realize what you are, you'll already be too far ahead for them to stop you. You were never one of them. You were always something more.